Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney, and action. From Marvel to DC, from Star Trek to Star Wars, from James Bond to the Fast and the Furious, we will review theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most. And tonight we are covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 2, streaming now on Disney+. All right, I am your host, Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight are Christopher Slattery, also known as the Slattman. How you doing, sir?
Good, good. Yeah, and Cat. Not Cap, Cat. This wouldn't be the real Cap anyway.
All right. We'll go with that. Yes. All right. Also joining us is Vanessa. She's the podcasting Rockstar and international cosplay queen.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
It's like a bad Tinder date. Hi.
Hi.
Tinder Zoom sucks. Hi.
Swipe left.
Swipe. My life. All right. Also joining us, award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
Reminder. What's it? Sorcerers are just wizards without hats.
Yes. Yes. No.
I had to remember that.
You got it backwards, I think.
The
Did I get
trifecta.
it backwards?
Wizards are sorcerers without. No, you're right.
No, sorcerers are wizards without.
I got it backwards. I have it backwards.
But did you read The Hobbit when it came out?
In
1937?
Yeah,
All
when
right.
it came out.
Oh, wow. I never knew the Winter Soldier could be so bougie.
Yeah.
He is so saucy,
Old school bougie.
right?
Can stare a lot.
The original hipster.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. This episode streamed on March 26, 2021, directed by Carl Skoglund and written by Michael Castelline. The cast includes, but is not limited to, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Danny Rodriguez, Cleve Bennett, Carl Lumley, Daniel Bruhl, Aaron Kellyman, Amy Aquino, and Elijah Richardson. Synopsis is John Walker is named Captain America, and Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes team up against a rebel group, the Flag Smashers. So that's really the big part of this is we spend a lot of time with the new Captain America, who we know is a U.S. agent in comic book land, but here is played by Wyatt Russell and sounding insanely like his father. Just a lot of Kurt Russell in his voice. But let's find out what our first impression of this episode was, and then we'll follow up with discussing about the show for a little bit, full spoilers, and then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scenes. Slattman, you are up first, sir. What was your first impression?
Great.
Great.
Yeah. It was a lot better than the first episode. It felt more it felt like it was going somewhere the whole time rather than feeling kind of stagnant at times. They really, and I feel like a lot of the things that they set up in the first episode have already started to pay off, especially with Bucky, and I love it. And I love Sebastian Stan and the other actor's name is escaping my brain.
The
Sam.
guy who plays Sam.
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie?
Anthony Mackie. Yeah.
Okay.
I love their chemistry. They are so great together. And this episode just it's what I expected from the first episode. And I'm happy that it's here.
I'm happy to hear too. We missed it so much on the first episode, right? I mean, that chemistry was a key element. That was missing.
Maybe they were. Maybe they did an episode where they weren't together to make you realize how much they needed to be together in order for the show to feel complete.
Damn, for psychology. All right, Vanessa, you're up next. What was your first impression of episode 2?
Star-Spangled Man with a plan. The wrong plan. Because we do not.
Man.
The wrong man with the wrong plan. No, I agree with everything the Slattman said. Like, this was the episode that we were waiting for. I had so much fun. I love that we get Bucky and Sam together from the get-go, and they have this amazing banter between each other. I was the jokes are so funny. Bucky's faces and responses to Sam is just perfect. At one point, I know it kind of, I said, oh, this kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Dragnet kind of thing. And, that's kind of far reaching. But as far as like maybe cop drama type thing or action drama, FBI drama, I don't know. These dramas that we see out there, the writing feels like that, with that back and forth banter that you would get, an Odd Couple sort of, but in this more serious situation. So yeah, it fulfilled everything that was lacking in the first one. And I agree too. I think we needed the first one in order to establish like how alone our characters were, and how immediately once they're brought together, it changes that dynamic. It changes the way they feel personally. And, you don't feel alone anymore. Right. And now we have more than one problem on our hands, I think, by the end of this episode.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Yes, definitely. All right, Christopher G. Moore, you're up next. What was your first impression of episode 2?
Yeah, I think when I first, I think like a lot of people when we heard about this show, it's like, oh, this is just going to be the big action-y fun series that's just traditional Marvel, and it has that, but I really didn't know that they're just going to go full blast on sort of like the underlying racial issues and stuff, and tying that. I mean, even just bringing in like the Isaiah Bradley character, but at the same time they still balance that with the humor, of the sort of the buddy cop type thing between the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where it's just how they're two different approaches, and how they're always like they're like the odd couple action version of the Odd Couple, and so you have those humorous parts, but then you also have those other things that make you like feel bad for like, oh wow, that you realize that you still have the history of how our country has been, and how certain people were treated, and how like you have characters like the Falcon, who it has more to do with him not wanting to take up the mantle of being a Captain America. It has more to do with everything that goes along with that, to where, because he would be a black man taking on, and there's a bigger responsibility for that, and then you also see how like, oh, well, like he thought that, oh, I'm just giving this up to this museum or whatever, and then behind his back they bring the new white Captain America, and it's almost to the point of like, oh, you could see this guy, he has like, he seems to be a good guy, an okay good guy to some degree, but he's also the guy you're like, I don't like this guy as well. And even to the point where you feel kind of like, wow, you can sort of see how they're kind of manipulating people to accept him, to where like they have like this, like the black college band playing when he shows up and stuff, and things like that, that there's sort of, you see the underlying how they're trying to like win people over, in the same way that a lot of people do it in our own society, and then having them on Good Morning America, and it brings up a lot of those interesting issues involving that, but at the same time, you also have like the two sides of the coin of these two different people that are dealing with their own issues. You have the Falcon, who's dealing with his own life, how he's like one of these big adventure dudes, but at the same time, the color of his skin still is an issue, and he's dealing with sort of the history of racial injustice and where is his part in all this. And then you also have Bucky, who's been through all this stuff, and he still feels guilty for all these little things that he was forced to do as a killer, and he's the PTSD involving that, and how is he going to be able to sort of be this person he wants to be and still deal with resolving of those elements. And then they meet this guy, Isaiah Bradley, who's basically both of those issues all in one. So yeah, it brings up a lot of deep racial issues, which I was not expecting this series to go, but I'm glad it is. I think I will say the one thing that I still have an issue with, they still have an issue with exposition that bothers me. That whole opening scene with the new Captain America thing, and he's talking with the girl and his buddy, and it's like, oh God, this is like bad exposition dialogue, and I hate that. And I was kind of hoping that we get away a little bit away from that. And maybe we will now that we cut that out of our system. I feel like every time they introduce a new character, introduce some new scenario, they have to like, oh, let me introduce where this scenario is by bringing in this character. But yeah, it's still doing really well with moving these characters along. We finally get Bucky and Falcon together where they need to be, and they're going to keep butting heads, which makes it even more fun. We had that really great action scene on the road. So yeah, so I think this show's really doing a really great job of like having that sort of Marvel entertainment aspect of it, but at the same time bring up a lot of issues and stuff I was not really expecting to be in this sort of comic book thing. But that's what comic books have always been about. It's always been telling these bigger than life stories, but with these bigger than life characters, but also having underlying themes, whether it's the way society is, or racism, or any other types of subjects that political subjects that they can get away with because they have people in tights. So but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I just, whoever's writing the scripts needs to stray away from this sort of like gross exposition dialogue, which just makes me roll my eyes every time I see that.
Yeah, they also make fun of comics historically. They have struggled where they've made strides. They've also struggled, and the one dialogue bit about the Black Falcon, is a callback to the 70s and 80s when you got the Black Goliath, and you got that's just Black Panther. That's what happened, right? Some of them make sense, some of them don't, and it was an interesting kind of call out on that.
Oh, with the kid.
Yeah.
The kid.
It's like, what do they call you, the Black Kid?
But Sam has a good time with it. He goes, oh, I got him. His sense of humor is interesting because he does the same thing to Bucky about. And Bucky is not. Bucky's like doesn't get humor and just takes off. Wait, I was getting you. Yes, for me, it was great to get them back together. Although I don't understand how Bucky just. I mean, I understand basically how he gets there, but how there's a big leap between him in his living room watching the show about the new Captain America and then him showing up. Right at the right time. And, that pushed it a little bit, but you forgive that really quickly because when they're together, even the two of them sitting across from a plane, staring at each other and reacting to the fact that they realize they're staring at each other, it just really plays off on the physical comedy of it. And then there's the verbal comedy is funny as well. Really like these two together. It's really like these actors together. They really do have this good cop bad cop kind of chemistry to them, and so they do. Okay, so there's other things that I thought were really cool. I loved Erin Kellyman playing the bad guy in this. I guess you would call her, right? The Carly Morgenthau character. She's Christopher. You probably recognize her from Solo, the Star Wars movie.
I was the whole time. I'm like, I've seen this actress somewhere before, and that makes perfect sense still.
Yep, she was.
Oh, man.
She was one character. I forget what the character's name was on the thing, but I bet
she had that outfit or suit or whatever.
Yes. And we're going to look up what her character is real quick because that's how we fly here. Enfys Nest. Oh my God, I can't even say it, but that's what it is.
Was that the Star Wars name?
I'm just not going to do it. But she's Flag Smasher, and what's interesting is her surname is the same surname as the Flag Smasher in the comics, except for gender swap. But there's something interesting going on there, and there's also they're alluding to, a couple of bad guys above them, right? They're getting chased by somebody, they're getting texted by somebody else potentially, or same person. And so there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's a whole super soldier thing, and then of course there's the new Captain America, which I'm kind of different with you, Chris. I really liked that opening. I thought it brought a lot of interesting aspects to him, and especially him trying to in the locker room trying to say the lines in camp, but when he gets out there in front of the crowd, he has no problem at all. He just goes right into it. And then the whole interview I thought worked out really well. Of course, it was Good Morning America, which of course is ABC, which is Disney, so they get away with it, right? So that's kind of fun. I enjoyed that, and I liked how.
Let me ask you while we're talking about him real quick. Was he a super soldier?
He
because he is like super strong, right?
Right. He I don't think he is yet. He does become that in the comics, but I don't think because
he was throwing the shield around and bouncing it and catching it in the air and doing all these like incredible things. And I know he's like this decorated war hero and stuff, but it seemed like beyond that. And I didn't understand. I didn't catch it if they explained it.
They didn't explain.
There was a line where he says that I don't have powers or something. So I think there is some kind of line in this episode where he does mention he's not like special or whatever, but I don't know. But because we're dealing with some villains who actually the super serum seems to be given out willy-nilly to people, I'm assuming that it might be one of those situations where he might find some way to give him that, give himself that maybe.
Well, him and Lamar both, Battlestar, he gets called as well. They both they both become super soldiers in the comics. I suspect they either are or will be in the show.
Did the Falcon, when didn't he become Captain America in one of the comics?
He does. Him and Bucky both take the mantle on at different times.
Did Falcon? Did he ever get super serum?
No. But Rodriguez does, and Danny Rodriguez, Torres rather. Danny Ramirez plays Joaquin Torres, and Joaquin Torres does and becomes the new Falcon.
New Falcon with actually feather wings.
Yeah, right.
I think so. Yeah. So there's a lot of there's just so
much.
But
they can do whatever they want to. That's the main thing as well.
Yeah, and there's been so many different iterations of these characters that we really have no idea which direction they're going to go.
Yeah,
or they can go in their own direction.
Yeah.
Although we almost have, I know some people have pointed out, we almost have confirmation that with them showing up at Isaiah Bradley's house and his grandson, who is one of the, the Young Avengers or whatever that.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be just one other puzzle piece, along with the two kids from WandaVision and the upcoming Hawkeye daughter.
Yeah, his daughter.
So
the Young Avengers, make no doubt.
Kevin Feige, he's definitely putting all these puzzle pieces in line.
And if they don't do it, so many people are going to be upset.
There's no way they can't do it now. But so Carl Lumbly plays Isaiah Bradley, who is a Captain America from, I think, the Korean War, did they say, right? The Korean War. And he ended up, of course, getting... they ended up putting him in jail for 30 years, and that was part. And they studied him and everything. So there's a lot of places where this alternate super soldier formula could come from. If you guys remember in the Hulk movie,
we're going back far.
We
now.
are going back. The General Thunderbolt Ross is trying to recreate that himself. So there's a lot, and I suspect he's going to show up in this show somewhere. But I think
I would assume so.
Yeah. But yes, Elijah Richardson plays Eli Bradley, and Eli Bradley is that character. That's the name of that character. So he does not have super soldier. So he gets his powers a different way. I don't think they'll go that route, but even if they don't, they've introduced the character.
Yeah.
Does the super serum, does it not like go in your DNA?
Who knows? But who knows when, if he had kids or didn't have kids. We don't know if it was before kids or after kids. He was in jail for 30 years, so it does make some of that logistically interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. I never really wrapped up. I enjoyed the show. The only time I thought I questioned it was I thought the psychiatrist scene was a little forced. Even though I thought it was hilarious, it felt so outside of what the rest of the episode was, and felt a little forced. Am I alone in that?
No, it definitely felt outside of reality, but I'd still take it because it was so funny. And I just loved seeing them together and when they had to get clothes put their legs.
So people fighting on top of tractor trailers, that's not
that's completely
that's not
realistic.
Out of reality.
Okay, that's realistic.
I meant to say out of place. Out of place with the rest of the show.
No, that's what I mean. What I mean.
That I'd rather accept that moment than other moments where it's like all expositionville. Because I think to build up to that moment where we actually have Bucky finally come up and say something, that he doesn't, you understand where he's coming from, because he feels like, well, if you feel like Captain America or Steve was like wrong about you, then he was wrong about me as well. Mm-hmm. So, and you get to see that one emotional, because he's always like staring, not really emotional, and you see him emotional for the first time. So I love that segment. I mean, yeah, it is very funny. It's a funny bit, staring in each other's eyes and having to like stick their knees in each other's crotches. It's kind of fun. I feel like now this is going to be the running thing where there's situations where they have to be like forced on each other, like where they're rolling rolling down the hill. And yeah, this is going to start a lot of Falcon Winter Soldier fan fiction. Yeah. But when they're rolling off the truck into the grass. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with the psychiatric thing. I mean, yeah, it was a weird thing. Some of these people have more power than they deserve. But I don't know. It didn't bother me. I like that much better than the Varsity Blues scene at the very beginning.
Okay. Slattman,
I don't want your life.
What do you think? What do you think of the bad guys? We talked about the scene on the truck. Give us your spiel on our flag smashers.
I liked the reveal of the main actress for the flag, the group. I thought that was brilliant to show. I mean, you could see it coming from a mile away, but it was still really fun. A fun interaction for our characters, for her to come around the corner and to smile, and then you just see Sebastian Stan go wee. But no, they're just the right amount of intimidating while also feeling kind of human, because you can tell that someone else is after them at the same time. So it makes you think are they really bad guys? Were they hired by the wrong people? Are they stealing from the real bad guys? Could they go one step further and make these guys not so bad in the end, or are they just going to go all Hydra and just make them super bad?
Well, there's a lot of different groups thinking they're right, and that's always what makes the best conflict, right? Because when they believe they're right, then you get behind that. You can get behind them in just the way they think, not agree with them or not. But this group is basically wanting to go back to the way it was during the blip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things have changed now that everybody's back, and there's all kinds of this return to normalcy regulation thing that's really singling out these people that don't deserve it, and they're fighting for them. They're getting medicines, they're doing all kinds of things.
I think this is
Robin Hood, but I think there's something else to them.
And I think this is going to tie back somehow to Falcon in a big way because of everything that happened with the bank in the first and his family in the first episode. Like this is gonna become a internal struggle for him, and you can see where it's going and where they want to go with this, and I think it's a good direction.
Is it in the direction of somebody named Zemo?
Zemo. Well, jump on that, Vanessa, because at the end, where are they going? Where do they say they're heading off?
He's got to talk to him. Man, I loved that. It's not. I want to say was my favorite scene, but there's a much better scenes, I think. But when they talk about that and then they go and we see him, like I'm so excited for his introduction into this.
Yeah, we have a couple main characters that we haven't been introduced yet, and we're 2 episodes in. But I want to talk about that real quick before we wrap things up, because Slattman, you made a comment last week about wondering if if last week's episode wouldn't have been so shocking to us, because of it wasn't that we didn't like it, it's just that we were struggling with the characters being apart and stuff like that. But you were saying that it would work better if the 2 episodes were shown at once. Now that you've seen the second episode, what is your thoughts?
I still feel the same way.
Yeah,
I think the first episode was a great way to show like that these characters really complete each other, like from not just from a script perspective and an acting perspective, but also from they really like work well with each other, like in universe, and they're kind of doing like a Lethal Weapon-esque like buddy cop like detective work together. And I think the first episode was necessary for us to understand, for us to realize how much they did, how much their partnership, how important it is. But I do think it probably would have, actually, the more I think about it and the more I talk about it out loud, I do think having that week to reflect on it, probably not a bad thing. Because doing it back to back, you get the first episode and then you can immediately watch the second episode, and you don't get to reflect on how weird it felt for them to not be together and how empty they both felt in situations. So
interesting. I like that.
So I could see it going either way, but I definitely do think that I think the first episode was a necessary evil, even if we were a little disappointed with it.
And maybe because there's only 6 episodes, it feels like, oh, why did we waste one on something like this? But you're right, in hindsight, and even at the time, when we were watching it, you just feel the sadness, the darkness, the depression,
loneliness.
They're still chugging along, but something's missing.
Yeah, it was great to see them back together. There was a spark. Anybody sad for Red Wing? Red Wing gets smashed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry about Red Wing. No, you're not.
I wanted to do that all along.
Okay, I'm just going to say that seeing the 2 of them just walking down the street talking about Red Wing being smashed, it's the funniest damn thing.
Yeah.
Although it's very funny how when he jumps out the plane. He's like, I got that all on video, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have an extra shoot? All right.
You do it? Yeah. Okay, so we're reliving it all in our heads, and I know that you listening are as well. All right, so why don't we wrap this up? Let's give our final thought, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene for episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But before we do, if you're still listening, we want to thank you so much for hanging out with us and talking about this great show. We hope you're enjoying this, and we hope you've watched some of the others. And then we also did, of course, WandaVision and 2 seasons of Mandalorian. We did the Justice League movie and other things too. Plenty of stuff to go back and check out, and plenty of stuff coming to check out. So please do so. If you would like to support us, there's a great way to do it, and it's free. You hit the subscribe button. That's great. And if you share with a friend, that's great. Both free. You can also jump in if you want to get more involved. Hit the like button, dislike button, hit the bell to get reminded, or leave us some comments. We'd love your thoughts. We'd love to hear your thoughts. There are so many kind of Easter eggs buried in this. There's we could talk for hours on them, and many people on the internet have, and I think Christopher and I have watched all of them, trying to figure things out. There's some great things coming up in the next episode if you watched the trailer. But anyway, let's move on. But before we do that, we also want to thank our patrons at Patreon, because without their patrons, we wouldn't be able to do the show or speak English, and we wouldn't be able to do Horror News Radio, Take It to Horror, Gruesome Magazine. But we want to thank you all so very, very much. All right, let's do this. Slattman, you're up first. Your final thoughts, your score, your favorite scene.
I'm so sad you started with me because there's so many good scenes to pick from.
You want to get a couple of them chopped off the block? Huh?
Yeah, I really like this episode. I think it's going in a very, very good direction. I think even though this does feel more cookie cutter superhero movie than WandaVision, it's fun. It's great. It's awesome. It's exactly what I expected this show to be when they announced it. And I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the Flag Smashers. I'm excited to see what Zemo is going to do. Whatever that goes into, because there's 50 billion different directions they could probably take it. And I love seeing these characters together, and I love to see the conflicts that they have, the personal inner conflict that they both are having. It really makes them feel less like Superman and more like real people, like not just a guy in not just a superhero and like a guy in tights and a cape flying around saving the world, but like real people with real conflicts that just happen to be able to save the world. So it makes them really relatable in so many different ways, and the issues they go through also feel very relatable. And I think it's all because of good writing and excellent acting. So yes. kudos to everybody involved with from acting and writing and just everything. I really enjoy it. It's much better. And I think this is one of those series that the score is going to be creeping ever higher every episode that we watch. Nice. Yes. Speaking of score, I'm going to give this one a 4.25.
Good.
It is a step in the right direction. It is very fun. It is very good. It does have a couple flaws that I think Christopher G. Moore and Doc have brought up, but it's still good. It's still fun. It's still a lot better than a lot of other TV out there. Most other TV out there. My favorite scene. There's so many good scenes.
Yes, there are.
My favorite has to be when Falcon and Bucky are in the Jeep with the new Captain America, and what was his name? Battlestar. Yeah. And they're having a conversation. They're talking about like, you need to accept me. You need to do all of this. Like, I want to be like the best Captain America that I can be. And the moment when they go, okay, and Bucky goes, and who are you? And he goes, Battlestar. He's like, stop the truck. That whole interaction was great. That really stood out to me.
Yeah, I really liked it when he's the last line, right? It's always comes down to that line where he wants Captain America's wingman on his side.
Mm-hmm.
So always in his place, and I think that's part of what Falcon is dealing with too, both in struggling to become Captain America and also where he is in society. Right. Mm-hmm. So, really cool. Really great scene. Great pick. All right, Vanessa, you're up next. What is your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene?
I loved this episode. It was so funny to see them together, and it had some really emotional and touching moments that Chris touched on earlier, and some very topical things happening in it, that were very sad and heartbreaking, and like to see Sam about to be arrested and them asking Bucky, "Are you okay, sir?" as they're just having this conversation in the middle of the road, about to arrest him. It's just like, that's real. That feels very real. And what the Slattman was saying about, delving into their characters more and making these characters feel more real, I think that is what is going to make these series that they're coming out with so memorable, is that it's taking these characters which have been in these big epic stories for so long and breaking them down and showing you their humanity and their flaws and where they excel and where they need each other. And you really see that in this episode, how Bucky and Falcon need each other, whether they want to admit it or not.
Sure, right.
So yeah, I had a great time watching this. I liked learning more about our faux Captain America, and the kind of journey that his story took us on, because they do make him very endearing in the beginning. And then, as I was telling you guys earlier, there's just that moment at the end where they just flip the switch and he's like, all right, I guess he's the bad guy now. I guess he's on the not Falcon and Bucky team now. So yeah, they got a lot to pack into these last 4 episodes.
I know.
Just with what we know so far. And we haven't even they haven't even talked to Zemo yet. So I'm going to give this one a 4.5. I like the Slattman says, they are ramping up now. And if we were to see them all together at one time, I don't think we would feel like the first one was so different. But, having it serialized like this, you really have to allow the next one to build upon the ones before it in order to get a full picture. And my favorite scene, I don't know.
There's a lot of good ones.
I know. Actually, I think I am going to pick the therapist.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I really like that. There's so many. When they're talking to Isaiah, that broke my heart. Mm-hmm. It broke my heart, that story about him. He's like, how did they repay me? They threw me in jail for 30 years. Like, that's too much. That's too real. But if on the fun side of things, that therapist appointment and them having to talk to each other and be face to face and knees entwined, and it was just so silly and funny, and also, gave you some insight into our characters a little bit more. So yeah, I'm so excited to see where it's going to go from here.
Excellent. All right, Christopher G. Moore, what's your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene?
Yeah, I think this series is doing a really great job of sort of like delving into a lot of aspects of the Marvel universe that has the fun action-y parts, and then also has that sort of political and society-wise things that they do a good job of sort of like allowing superheroes to bring to the forefront that that doesn't feel as forced a lot of times as they do just in like normal drama movies or whatever. So, and it helps people to sort of like understand it a whole lot better, I think. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of really fun pieces of dialogue. I think, the chemistry between the Falcon and Winter Soldier is off the charts. I just want to see a buddy comedy series just for them from now until the end of time. But it is interesting how they do have the dramatic aspects of it, between Bucky and his mental issues, and then also Sam and him dealing with the racial issues, and then the revelation that this whole time there was another Captain America type that didn't get his due and was swept under the rug and didn't even get to be a part of Endgame, as one of, people avenging Earth, even though he had the abilities to do that, because he was treated horribly. He didn't get all the fanfare that Steve Rogers got. He didn't, he was sent to prison and was forced into having these powers that he can't even use, without people seeing him as probably a monster. So it's really horrible. And I think I know that when they wrote that sort of comic book character, it had a lot to do with that the historical time where they did experiments on African American people and without their knowledge, and did created horrible things with them. So I like that even though this is a comic book show, they're not afraid to sort of shy away from a lot of the racial aspects of the storyline, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as the series progresses. But at the same time, it also has some really fun moments that made me laugh throughout. I could just listen to them talking about when Sam's talking about the three things he's fighting against.
The big three.
The big three. Sorcerers,
Androids, aliens,
and wizards.
Aliens, wizards, yeah.
There's no such thing as wizards.
Yeah, so I love they each come from different perspectives and different approaches to things, and that what makes them the perfect odd couple, especially when they get into situations and they're trying to fight it their own way or trying to help each other out, or trying to one up each other a lot of times too. On the other hand, I still have issues with their dialogue approach to exposition. That whole opening scene felt like something out of a bad, Varsity Blues segment or something that just didn't work for me. Yeah. But I know that they sort of have to give some sort of background on these characters, especially this new Captain America character, which is fine and dandy, but it felt like exposition 101 and didn't and when we come from things like WandaVision, where they do a great job of having giving you information without spoon feeding it straight into your eyeballs, it just seems like lazy writing to me. But that's just me. But also, they're not shying away from dealing with Isaiah Bradley's stuff, so I'm kind of glad that they're still doing a great job of because that scene you talked about between the Falcon and the kid, I mean that just scene itself just shows you that perspective, how even in comics, Marvel's been bad about that. Oh well, we'll call this character the black character, and instead of it just being the character. So as for a rating, I don't know. Something about exposition always rubs me the wrong way, so I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I think it's still a great episode, and it's above and beyond most your CW shows or whatever. This delves into more interesting topics in a better way, I think. And yeah, there's a lot of different scenes to pick from that would be valid to pick from this episode. I will say, other than seeing a petite little girl beat their asses on top of a truck, I will say, I don't know. I probably go for the obvious thing of the Isaiah Bradley scene.
Okay.
It's not that obvious. That's a good choice.
Well, yeah. But I think that scene has so much going about it, because of you have this character who's for all intents and purposes probably should have carried the mantle of Captain America as just as much as Steve, and he never got that chance and got railroaded because of it. And then also you have Sam finding out for the first time, when people find out about historical things that happened, like we learned from Lovecraft Country, where you learn about these historical things that have happened that people have brushed under the carpet, brushed under the rug. And so in the same way that he finds out about this, and Bucky's known about it, but he never even told Steve about it, so all these people keeping it a secret when it, what they did to him should have been revealed. He should, get some comeuppance for all the things he suffered from, and you see it in his face, in his eyes, and his response when they show up at his house. So it's a very impactful scene that, you know, it definitely feels, you feel really bad for his character, you know, for him, all the suffering he's been through, you know. So yeah, I think that scene stands out, even though I probably would have picked the sorcerer dialogue scene.
That was a great dialogue scene.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I grew up watching The Amazing Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk on TV when it was Bill Bixby and I can't remember the Joker's name that played Spider-Man. Somebody's going to give me a hard time about that. But this, oh my God, to ever think that we would have this quality of a show with the Marvel characters and a really strong, as accurate as you really get, and you know, translating it from comics to the screen and really getting into the characters and how they live and breathe. I'm really loving it. I'm really loving it. It's between this and WandaVision, it's just amazing. Now I've enjoyed other things that we have gotten in the past. Shield, the Shield one isn't one of my biggest or more favorite ones, but when I did watch it, it was actually good. But it didn't feel Marvel, even though it is, right. It kind of didn't quite break that boundary. Didn't mean it wasn't entertaining. The Netflix shows, the Defenders Netflix shows, Daredevil and Power Man, all that, or Luke Cage. Those were great, but they still weren't quite what I'm talking about, right? They're close. They're probably the closest we got until these shows. These just live and breathe. It helps, you know, it comes out of 10 years of movies or of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so there's a lot to build on. But it's just really remarkable how it translates, you know, to these weekly shows. And I think having it serialized is really interesting. And I like the way, like somebody said, like we build on top of each other. I think having that, you know, letting each episode breathe on its own gives it its own quality. And I like that. I like, you know, I'm a huge Marvel zombie, so all these little things that are kind of tucked away, these Easter eggs, are really just great to experience, because that's what happens in the comics, right? You know, you will have a character that just name drops, you know, Dr. Banner and Tony Stark, right? You'll see the Fantastic Four building in the background when Spider-Man swings by, or you know, something like that, right? So it's a part of it. You feel shared. You feel like there's it's bigger than the show you're watching, right? There's other things happening, and I love that feeling. I love the experience. When I watch this, it really takes me away and transports me to this cinematic universe that we're getting each week on Disney Plus, and I love it. And this show, while it's not as rewarding personally as WandaVision was, it's still but they're just not the same show, right? And it's really, I've been trying more and more not to compare the two, because I don't think it's fair to either one. They're entirely different shows, but yet they still breathe in the same universe. You still feel like, you know, these characters would interact at any given time. And I love that. I love that we can get, you know, these different takes and different elements, different corners of the Marvel universe. And I'll stop there because I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I did enjoy this. There are some flaws with this one. It's still a great show. I'm going with 4.25, 4.25. And I'm really looking forward to watching the whole series again after it's done. Like, you know, get to the old 6 and then watch all 6 back to back and see what happens, because it's gonna feel epic. I really think there's an epic thing going on. The storylines that are kind of bubbling below the surface, when they make their way to the surface toward the end. You know, what they're doing with bringing Zemo in, next week, and what the Elijah character that they Isaiah character, excuse me, character that they dropped this, and that's got to come back. That's got to come back somehow, either with Bucky or with the Falcon, and inspire them, or be involved in the conflict. It's not done. I can't. It would be. I can't imagine that that's the only time we're going to see that character, right? Something else is going to happen, and I don't know. I'm going to stop there. I love it. My favorite scene. There's a lot to go for, but there's one scene in particular that really struck me, and it's during the fight on the two trucks, because I thought that whole fight sequence was masterfully choreographed. Just I knew where they were. They're jumping from truck to truck, but I felt where they were, and when the shield comes out of the off screen and into the screen, and saves I think it's Bucky at this time, right? Saves Bucky. You just feel it, right? And it feels good. But the new Captain America throws the shield, and when it comes back, Bucky catches it. And immediately, instinctively, almost, to his breaking his own heart, he hands it back to him, right? Just as if he would have done with Captain America. And I don't think he liked that at all. You get this look on his face, like, "Argh."
That was one of the scenes that I was toying with.
Yeah, and he caught it with his bare hand, not the cybernetic hand. So I don't know if you caught that. I don't know if that was a mistake or on purpose, but it was awesome. So I don't. It was just that. I mean, there's a lot of other things that happen in that scene, like underneath the truck when the Falcon saves Bucky. The whole thing with him sliding. But that scene where he caught it and the look on his face, there was so much expressed there that that's what I love. I love those little nuggets that happen right in the middle of everything.
And by the way, 1977's The Amazing Spider-Man starred Nicholas Hammond.
That's right, it did. Nicholas Hammond.
Which I watched. He had like spaghetti strainer eyes, and it was really bad.
Crawled up the.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Those 1977 special effects in TV.
And teenage Doc loved every minute of it.
Oh, I was a kid too, so
every bad minute.
I enjoyed it, even though as an adult, it's like, oh God, why did I like that?
Yeah. Oh, but you remember the Doctor Strange movie? Let's just let that hang right there, and we'll leave it alone. But there was a Doctor Strange movie back in the day.
Well, there was also the Hulk Thor movie that was really bad.
There was a Captain America too, right?
Oh my God, there was. And he wrote there was. Oh God, those days.
I missed the bullet with that.
Oh wow. But it was great then. But this is even better. I can't. All right, we gotta shut up. We gotta wrap this up. I want to thank you, Chris. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Vanessa, for joining me. This was a lot of fun. We're looking forward to next week. Next week, look for just a hint. Look for the drop of a very famous city that is in X-Men lore. Thank you guys for joining me. Let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.